Welcome everyone to the HAIMS Clinical video tutorial. I just ask that you please mute your cell phone. During this presentation, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me at any moment and ask me a question, or if I need to repeat something, please let me know and I'll be more than happy to do that. I will be using our training database in this video. Any of the information or data that you will see is completely fictitious. Any similarity to any person that may be living or dead would be merely coincidental. This slide talks about the interim guidance for the service treatment record. Currently today, in order for the VA to determine compensation and pension information, the process is that someone from either Med Records or a different MTF, they will print up from AHLTA the service treatment record and then mail it to a processing center who in turn tries to scan and upload that information into the HAIMS application. Effective January 1st, the standard business process is going to eliminate all of the scanning into AHLTA as far as cut and paste, and it's going to start going into the HAIMS application. So I know that the current process today is, for many of the folks, they are cutting and pasting and putting that information into AHLTA. However, that's going to change. Now what's going to happen is these service treatment records will be mailed to facilities within the United States where they will be scanned into the HAIMS application. There are a few required fields that are system enforced when we upload information into the HAIMS application, and we will go over that here shortly. The four required fields are the patient's name, the author of the document, so the author's name, the document type, and the date that the document was created or the date of the visit. There are also recommended fields that are business process enforced, such as your practice setting, the specialty, the clinic, maybe the installations, the name of the installation, and the location. Those are not required fields. However, of the 18 different fields that can be filled out, 4 will be required, but the more that you fill out, the easier it will be to locate that document in the future. Under the document type, currently today in AHLTA we have the STR AHLTA, we've got the medical records part 1 through 4, the dental records part 1 through 4, and the service treatment administrative documentation. Those drop downs will also be available in the HAIMS system. As I mentioned, currently today, the service treatment records for the Army and the Air Force, they are being sent to San Antonio, Texas, where there is a processing center where someone is taking those large quantities of paper and they are scanning them into the HAIMS application. For the Navy, currently they are setting up an operational unit in Chantilly, Virginia, which will then be moved into the St. Louis area. You'll notice there are a couple of point of contact numbers at the bottom for the Army, the Air Force, and for the Navy. The interim guidance for the clear and legible reports, the CLRs. Currently today, for example, referral management may receive some documentation from an off-site provider or an off-site facility, and they will copy and paste that information into the AHLTA clinical note or the ad note. And that is going to completely cease. You will receive direction from your command that will inform you when you're going to completely stop cutting and pasting and putting into AHLTA, and instead you'll start taking those electronic documents and you will simply scan them or upload them into the HAIMS application, which we will go over in our presentation today. So the purpose of HAIMS is to conduct a training to support the accelerated deployment. For those of you that were around when AHLTA was deployed, that worldwide deployment took just over 3 years. For the HAIMS application, it is being deployed in a much faster time frame, around 15 months. You'll notice the second bullet point talks about this will enable the military health system to achieve a paperless record. Of course, we all know we're never going to be completely paperless. However, with the new HAIMS application, we will have the ability to take documents, loose paper, put it into a digital format, and then simply upload it or import it into the large HAIMS repository. This is going to help support the workflow for the veteran benefits determination. Currently today, that process can take anywhere from 400 to 600 days. Well, once all of these records become digital and you'll have access, instant access to them anywhere in the world, the hope is to get that time frame down to at least 125 days or less. Theater images are available. Full enterprise deployment will occur by June of 2014, and the image sharing capability has already started. So the scope of HAIMS is to enhance global awareness for healthcare providers. And in this bullet point, providers really refers to anyone that deals with patient care. So it could be a tech, it could be an administrative person, it could be a provider, any one of those folks that deals with the paper documents. You now will have the ability to take those documents, scan them, and upload them into the HAIMS repository. It will provide scanning and importing capabilities of artifacts and images from a local drive. So what that means for you is you have to get the documents into a digital format prior to uploading it into the HAIMS repository. The bottom bullet point talks about bulk scanning. Those folks in med records that deal with large quantities of paper, they have the ability to scan large quantities in all at one time. So the overview, HAIMS, what does it stand for? The acronym is Health, Artifact, and Image Management Solution. When you hear me in this video discuss artifacts or images or assets, I am talking about those documents that have been electronically scanned or imported into the HAIMS repository. You'll notice on the first bullet point it says radiographic images such as X-rays, CTs, MRIs. Those images are automatically loaded into the HAIMS system. Once the radiologist generates the report through CHCS, in a short time frame, you would then have access to view those radiographs from within HAIMS, and we'll demonstrate that here shortly. Everything else, photographs, WAV files, audio files, even video files, any scanned document, all of those items, there's a person that must import that information into the HAIMS repository. So HAIMS was created to manage the health artifacts for the military health system. There are two different methods that we can use to access the HAIMS application. The first is through the standalone mode, basically through a website, a web URL. And the second method, the most predominant method that we all will be using, is from within AHLTA, which I will refer to that as the embedded mode. It will be a HAIMS link from within the folders list inside of AHLTA. HAIMS does interface with several types of external systems, of course AHLTA, the BHIE or the Bidirectional Health Information Exchange, and through this BHE we now have the ability to view and search for images that have been loaded into the VA's VISTA system. That also gives them the ability to see all of the documents and files that we have imported into our HAIMS system. So we share each other's information. And of course, PACS, the Picture Archiving and Communication System, no matter where an X-ray is taken, anywhere in the world, as long as you have a HAIMS account and you can access the HAIMS repository, you will be able to see that radiograph. The key benefits of the HAIMS system, it is a large repository. Think of it as a large filing cabinet. If you can get whatever it is you're trying to import into the system, if you can convert it to a digital format, electronic, you can then import it right into the HAIMS repository. It will provide access to those X-rays regardless of where they were generated. And as I mentioned, through the BHE, we now have the ability for the VA and the DoD to share each other's images acquired by either agency. So with this breakthrough approach, this is going to improve healthcare for our wounded warriors and our veterans. it will be seamless because the information that is uploaded into the HAIMS repository is instant. As soon as you import it into the system, it's viewable anywhere in the world instantly. So with that, the continuity of care means that the right information is available, it's at your fingertips when you need it, and that could mean saving a life. There are a few known functionality issues that are being worked on. For example, when you want to view the DICOM image or the X-ray, the radiograph, the more slices or the more radiographs you're trying to pull up, the longer it may take to load. And that is all a restriction based upon how fast your internet connection is at your facility. Under the account synchronization, basically what we're saying here is as long as you know your AHLTA username and password, creating your account should not be a problem. Your system administrator will be able to help you do that. However, if you have some crazy characters sometimes in your AHLTA password, the system administrator may ask you to change your AHLTA password in order to create your HAIMS account. So our course objectives today: we will navigate and utilize the embedded mode from within AHLTA. We are going to search for those assets or those documents. We're going to see how do we view and acquire them. We also will have the ability from within AHLTA to associate or paperclip certain documents to encounters, and we will show you that shortly. When I talk about the metadata screen, there are 18 different fields. I mentioned earlier that 4 of those fields are required. However, the more information that you fill out when you import a document into the HAIMS system, the easier it will be to locate or search for that document in the future. And of course, we will look at a couple of x-rays. We're also going to log into the standalone mode, which is the website, and search for patients from within the standalone mode. So in summary, we're going to log into the account. You can customize your user profile. We're going to show you how to search, view, and scan documents. We'll talk a little bit more about metadata and how to view and acquire and annotate DICOM images. That's it for the slide presentation. Do I have any other questions? This slide represents some of the resources. So we have the government resource folks, Mr. Ronald Anderson and Mr. Lois Clem, as well as some of our Leidos representatives. Your service representatives are listed here. And down below you'll see it says HAIMS Resources. There's a link for the KSS, which is our knowledge sharing site. You have the ability, if you choose, to go to this site, create your own account, and from there you can actually ask questions about HAIMS, and someone, a trainer such as myself, will reply to your questions via email. Down at the bottom you see MHS Learn. If anything that we go over today you'd like to see again, you can go to MHS Learn and access the HAIMS computer-based training module. And there are short video clips, 5 to 7 minute long, that, for example, if you wanted to see how to associate an asset to an encounter, you could watch a video to show you how to do that. So now we are going to go ahead and move over to our AHLTA. I have already logged into AHLTA, and you'll notice at the top here it says no patient selected. Without selecting a patient, if you look at the folders on the left side, nowhere do you see the word HAIMS. It's important to remember the only way that the HAIMS icon is going to show up in the folders list is after you have searched for a patient. So I am going to pull up one of my fake patients. And you will notice over on the left side now, just above current encounter, there is an icon, and it says HAIMS. There are actually 4 different methods for opening the HAIMS application from within AHLTA. The first and most prevalent is going to be here on the HAIMS folder. So in order to see any of the documents or assets that are associated to my patient, I simply click one time on the HAIMS folder. A new tab will launch, and from here it's going to display all of the assets that are associated to HAIMS MMM50. I'm going to pin my folders list just so my screen can be larger. And we're going to talk a little bit about the screen that we're looking at right now. You'll notice down here at the bottom right, it says page 1 of 1. There are 11 items or 11 assets that are in this patient's record in HAIMS. Over on the left side are my navigation buttons. Of course, I can go page to page, or I could go to the very last page. Up at the top of the screen on the far right, you'll see that I have some search queries that we will talk about. In the middle, I have a what to search for box. Down below, I have a filter box. I have some my saved grid configurations here and some icons here on the left. So the first thing that we will discuss is the grid, the actual grid that we are looking at. You'll notice that the first 6 columns are gray. Those 6 gray columns right here, they cannot be removed and they cannot be rearranged. Now, I can widen them or narrow them by simply dragging the line left or right, but I cannot rearrange them. I can also sort by simply clicking on the little drop down here. I can assort ascending or descending. I can even group them together. Over on the far right side, you'll notice that I have a bunch of white columns in the white area. These columns I can move around. So for example, if I want to take a sensitive column and move it to the beginning, I simply drag it and drop it. If there are certain columns that I don't need to see, I have the ability from within HAIMS to customize my view, and I can add or remove those columns. Up at the top, we have two tabs. We have Simple Search tab, and we have the Advanced Search tab. If I click on the Advanced Search tab, this is the only place from within HAIMS that will allow you to search for VA information. And I do that by simply check marking this box that says Include VA. If I want to give it a date range, I can. So for example, I could go back 1 year, and I'll pick April 1st through today. Then I would scroll to the bottom of the screen, and I would simply click on the search button. So again, in order to search for VA, you simply check mark this box. If you choose to give it a date range, you can. And then I would scroll to the bottom and hit search. And it would pull up any of the assets that I have access to through the HAIMS system in order to see or view those documents and images from the VA. This is the only place that you can search for it. When you're done searching for VA, just remember to uncheck your box and go back to your Simple Search tab. So let's talk a little bit more about filtering and searching for documents. There are 2 very powerful search engines built inside of the HAIMS application. Now the first way that I can search is right under this box that says what to search for, search contains. So if I want to narrow my search, let's say for example I just wanted to search for any document that had the letters ENC in the title. I could type in ENC. I can choose to give it a date range or not, and click search. Once I click search, my asset grid will reload, and it has now narrowed down from 11 items down to 3. I could then search even further by clicking in the filter box. And for example, if I wanted to narrow this down to the H&P, the history and physical, I could just type the letters HI, and the system will automatically filter even further. In order to reload my asset grid, I need to backspace out of the filter, and I will also need to backspace out of my search contains, click on search, and that will reload my asset grid. So as you can see, I can search by just search contains, or I can search just by filter. In the filter box, all I need to do is start typing letters and it'll automatically start filtering down. So if I typed in EKG, for example, it'll automatically start filtering for me. So it's a little faster if you use filter over the search contains. And in order to reload my grid, I simply backspace 3 times and get rid of the letters. I mentioned the save search queries. If you'll notice under my drop down up here, I have a search query that is saved under the word encounter. If I click on that, it will automatically search for any keyword that has encounter in it. Again, you'll notice what it did. It put ENC with a star in the search contains, and it automatically filtered for me. So if you work with specific documents every single day, maybe you do work with encounter notes all day long, you could save a search query typed in as encounter, as I did, and simply come to your drop down and just click it, and it would automatically search for you. I'm going to go ahead and backspace this out and reload my grid by hitting search. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about these icons over on the left. One very unique functionality from within the HAIMS system is what we call hovering to discover. If I take my mouse and I hover over icons, or if I hover over hyperlinks, I get pop-up boxes. And these boxes will either tell me a little bit more information about what I'm looking at, or it may tell me how to perform a certain function. If I hover over the very first icon, it says print grid. If I were to click on that, it would simply print the grid that we're looking at, this asset grid. It just prints it out. The second icon is my export grid data. If I clicked on this, it will export all of the assets up to the most recent 100. HAIMS will only display the most recent 100 assets. So for example, if I wanted to search for an asset that might be asset number 260, I would then need to use my search contains and use the date range search in order to search up any asset that is beyond the most recent 100. And that's what the second icon does here. It will export all this grid data to a CSV file, which then can be opened up in Excel. And from Excel, of course, we know how powerful that application is. It's great for sorting and filtering. So if I'm a HIPAA researcher, for example, I may utilize this icon frequently. The third icon over is the configure columns. Again, the 6 gray columns, I cannot get rid of them. However, the columns in the white, I can. If I click on this icon, you'll notice that I have certain columns with check marks and some without. If I did not want to see the clinic name, the facility name, or the author or the description, but maybe I wanted to see the form number and the import date and time, I could check mark those two. Down at the bottom, of course, I can always restore to default settings. So I click OK, and as I scroll over to the right, you will notice that the columns that I unchecked are gone, and the ones that I added have been added here at the end. And again, they are customizable, meaning I can grab and move them around if I choose. If I like this grid configuration, I can then save it by using the next icon over, where it says Save Grid Configuration. I simply click on it. I give it a name. I can call it Import. Actually, I already have one called Import. I'll just call it Test. I can even set it as my default by checkmarking this box right here. I click OK. And you'll notice here in the middle, in this drop-down, I actually have 2 different grid configurations that are saved. If I click on Import, it's going to reload my grid. And you'll notice if I scroll over to the right, I have the import date and time column, and I also have the encounter date. Again, right now what we are going over is customizing your view, what you see when you log in to AHLTA and click on the HAIMS application. The fifth icon over is our group selected records. The way this works, let's say that we're working with a patient that was in a motor vehicle accident. If you can imagine over the span of 6 months how much paperwork or how much documentation would be generated. You could have pre-op information, post-op, you could have off-site chiropractic, there could be all kinds of different medications prescribed. So over the span of 6 months, let's say 10 different assets have been uploaded into that patient's file. If I wanted to group all of those assets together so that I could see them all at one time, meaning I don't have to use the page-by-page buttons at the bottom to go search for them, I could simply just check mark all of the assets associated with that motor vehicle accident, so I will just choose 4, and then I can say group. It's going to ask me to name it. So in the very beginning here, I'll type in MVA for motor vehicle accident. And then I can click OK. You'll notice what that does, it will put a plus mark on the far left side of the screen right next to all 4 of those assets. So it doesn't matter what page that asset was located on. If I'm on page 7 and it has a plus mark, I could simply open the plus mark, look at the name of the group, and if I drill down, all of the 4 assets that I grouped together will be there, so I don't have to filter to search for them.
Sir, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Whereas if I accidentally grouped a wrong asset with that group, can I get rid of that?
That's a very good question. Student wants to know if you accidentally grouped the incorrect asset, do you have to completely delete the group and start over, or can you simply click and get rid of it? And the answer is you can simply click one time, right click. So for example, on this summary, I will right click and it says remove asset from group. And as I click that, it will now take that one asset and remove it and leave me with 3. You'll notice that now I only have 3 plus marks, and if I drill down, there will be 3 assets. So very good.
Thank you, sir. Now that leads me to another question about grouping. Can you add another asset to that group?
You do have the ability, yes, to add another asset to that group. You would simply check mark the group, check mark the box, and add whatever asset you're going to add to it, and then click on group, and it will add that asset to this group of assets that you already have created. So there is a way, yes, for you to add a new asset into the same group that you've already created, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good questions. So if over time you decide that you no longer need this group, you can delete it simply by right-clicking on the group name and just deleting the group. Keep in mind that when an asset has been uploaded into the HAIMS application, you can never delete the asset itself. It will be in the record forever. So this grouping and ungrouping does not delete anything. It just ungroups whatever was grouped. Another thing to keep in mind, whoever has the clinical role for HAIMS, any person can group and any person can ungroup. And the grouping does follow the patient. It does not follow the user. So if user Joe groups 4 assets together, user Sally can log in and look at the same patient, and she will get the benefit of seeing Joe's group. However, Sally does have the ability to delete Joe's group if she chooses to. I'm going to skip the next icon and go to the green cue ball that says Icon Legend. The icon legend lets you know a little bit more about the icons that you're looking at. You'll notice the green check mark says available and ready to view. So everything that has a green check mark over here on the left is available, and I can click on it, open it up, and view it. Unless you are a system administrator, you will never see a red X. The red X would only be displayed if you accidentally upload something incorrectly for the wrong patient. In that event, you would follow your current business process and contact your system administrator and let them know, I accidentally put something incorrect into the record, and they have the ability to go in and remove it from view so that no one can see it. Under versions, you have the letters A, D, and R. Similar to AHLTA, we can append and amend documents from within HAIMS. So anywhere under version column over here on the right, you see letters. If you see the letter A, that means that that is an appended document. If you see the letter D, in the HAIMS world, it stands for derived. But in the AHLTA world, it means the exact same thing as amended. So if a document has been amended, you would see the letter D. The letter R is a replaced document. So if a document is loaded into a patient's file and it's the wrong document, you do have the ability, if you have the correct document, to replace it with the correct document. When you do that, you would see the letter R, which stands for replaced document, and the original would have a red X that, of course, you would never see. Down below that, we see file types. We have audio files. This gray looking, looks like a X-ray, a chest X-ray. That stands for the DICOM, or the radiographical images. Of course, the two mountains with the sun looks like images. You've got all of your Microsoft products, your Excel, PowerPoint, Word, PDFs, text files, video files. Again, as I mentioned in the slide presentation, there's almost nothing that you cannot upload into the HAIMS system. And when we import a document, I will go into further detail on that. So that's your icon legend. So let's go ahead and open up a document just to see what it looks like. So I'm going to choose, for example, this EKG right here. All I have to do is simply click one time on it, on the blue hyperlink. I'm going to get a dialog box. It's going to ask me to open the file. There it goes. And images media. And as you can see, we have an EKG in color. Full screen, full size. Of course, I've opened it with my Windows photo viewer, so I do have the ability, if I choose, to enlarge it. Very easy to see full-size documents from within HAIMS. And there really is no size limitation for the file that you are going to import. You'll notice that we have a column here that's marked as sensitive. That means that this document down here at the bottom, this Word document, is a sensitive document. Break the glass. If I would like to see or view that document, I simply click one time on the blue hyperlink, and I'm going to see this box. This will let the user know that you are about to open up a sensitive document. Are you sure that you want to do this? If you are going to proceed, you must give a reason, either one of these reasons here, or I can click Other, and I'll just type in Test. Click OK, open my document, and now I have just accessed the sensitive document.
Sir, I got another question.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that that is a Word document, so when you open it, could I make alterations to that document right there?
Another great question.
And it would be saved?
Another great question. Student wants to know, Do you have the ability, when you are in HAIMS, to open up documents or assets and make changes to them and simply click Save and you've changed the asset? And the answer is you cannot do that. No. You do not have the ability to edit any document that is in the HAIMS application. Once it's in, it's locked. It's static. You cannot make any changes to it. However, you do have the ability to open the document, save it to your computer, make your changes to it, and then you can import it back in. In that case, you may use one of the letters for append or amend, which is derived. So you do have the ability to make an edit to a document. However, you have to first open it, save it to your computer, make your changes, save it, and then you import it back into the HAIMS application. But you do not have the ability to edit or make a change to the original. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Very good question. So let's say, for example, we see two D's here. And we know that these are amended. The date that it was created, they were both created the same day. How do I know which is the original and which is the amended or derived? You can right-click, go down to the bottom where it says View History, and this tells me that this is the original document that was imported 30 October, and the author was unknown. If I right-click on the second one and go to View History, this is going to tell me that the original was imported 30 October, and then it was derived or amended on 3 November. So it's very easy to find out which is the original and which is the changed document. Anytime you do an amend or an append, again, the letters. Anytime that you see the D's or the A's, you do have the ability to see which is the original and which is the appended or amended by simply right-clicking on the hyperlink and going to View History. You'll also notice it says Import New, Import Derived, Append, or Replace. In that student's question, this is where that person would have re-imported the edited document back in. They would have clicked on the document, right-clicked, and either bring it back in as an appended document, an amended document, or they could even import a brand new document by simply right-clicking. And of course, if you hit Retrieve Asset, that's just going to open the asset so you can see it. So any questions so far on what we've gone over? Okay, so just kind of recap. Remember that on the Advanced Search tab here, this is the only place from within HAIMS that I can search for VA information, and I have to check mark this box. Under Simple Search, of course, any document that you choose to open, you simply click on the hyperlink and it will open. You have the ability to search by specific letters from within the title of the document. You can also use the filter. I can save my search queries up here on the right, and I can save my grid configurations here in the middle. And now we're going to talk about importing an asset into the HAIMS system. In order to import a document or upload, the first thing that you have to do is you have to get the document into an electronic format. So if it's fax forwarded to you, you already have it in electronic format. If it's a document that's loose paperwork, you may need to scan it. If you have a scanner hooked right up to your workstation, you can simply put the document in the scanner. You can scan it to a HIPAA compliant folder, and from there you now have it in an electronic format, and you can import it into the HAIMS system. And this is how we do it. We click on this icon right here that says Import Asset. Once we click on that icon, we are going to be taken to the Acquire Asset window. From here we have two options. If you are fortunate enough to have a scanner locally attached to your workstation, you would simply click on Scan and Upload and then click Scan. The scanner would start scanning the documents into the HAIMS system, and you would fill out the metadata information prior to upload. Since I do not have a scanner hooked up to my computer, I am going to click on Browse and Upload File. So I would click on Browse, find the file that I want to upload. Let's say this EKG. Click Open. You'll notice here it says examples of unsupported file extensions. The batch files, the driver files, executables, the Visual Basic files, you cannot upload those types of files into the HAIMS system. Once I have my file that I want to upload, I simply click Upload. That will take me to the metadata screen. Now this is a very, very important screen because what I fill out here will determine how easy it is for me to search and filter for the document in the future. Again, there are 4 required fields. The first required field is the patient's name. Since I'm inside of AHLTA, I already have the patient's name here in the patient bar. The second required field, as you can see with this red asterisk, is the author name. The author name is the name of the person that authors the document. Who created the document? In most cases, it may be the provider's name, and there may even be a situation where it is a provider that created the document and signed off on it. However, you cannot read the doctor's name. In the event that you cannot read the name of the person that authors the document, you can type in unknown. But in our example, we're going to type in Jones, comma, space, John. Again, if I could not read the name, I could type in the word unknown. The second required field, or actually the third required field, is the date the document was created. So this is the date of the visit. I simply click on the calendar and I choose the date of the visit, and we're going to use 3 April. The fourth required field is the document type. If I click on the drop down here, you'll notice there are different document types that I can choose from. Not every single document is loaded into the drop down. That is where you as a clinic are going to want to get together as a group and figure out naming recognition for specific documents that you are going to upload into the HAIMS system. So I could choose, for example, encounter note. It is a required field, so I have to choose something. Up above, you'll notice that there's a box. It's not required. However, it is the MHS form number box. And this is a smart box. From within HAIMS, many of the boxes, the metadata boxes that we type information into, many of them have drop-downs, automatic drop-downs. The Navy forms are in there, the Air Force forms, the Army forms. There's even Coast Guard, DOD, and of course the standard forms. So if I were to search for a standard form, SF space 55, you'll notice it's automatically giving me a choice. If I wanted to choose the 558, which is the emergency care and treatment form, I could simply arrow down and hit enter, and you'll notice that it automatically gives me the document type. Let's search for the form SF space 508. You'll notice there is no 8 in the drop-down for me to choose from. It's a medication reconciliation form, So it's an actual live form, but it's not here for me to choose. If I type in the number 8, the smart box will not let me free text in the smart box field. So what I would do is I would then come down to document title. Now this is a free text field. Under document title, this will allow me to free text and type whatever it is and be very specific about the document that I'm about to upload. So since the standard form 508 was not in the drop down, I can actually type in SF space 508 medication reconciliation form. And now that would be searchable. When I import this into the HAIMS application, I would be able to search for that document by typing in SF508 or the word medication or the word reconciliation. You notice the document that we opened up earlier from the asset screen, and it was sensitive. If I am loading a sensitive document into the HAIMS application, this is where I would mark it as sensitive, this little box right here. If I check mark that box, it will get loaded in as a sensitive break the glass document. Practice setting is another smart box. So if I type in OU, I have different drop downs to choose from. I can pick dental, cardiology if I want to type in CAR. And I can fill out most of these smart boxes all the way down to the bottom. Under clinic, of course, maybe the clinic that I'm working with is dermatology. And the installation facility, I could type in Bethesda. Gives me different choices to choose from. I could type in HICM. Moody. Pearl Harbor. Again, all the facilities are loaded. You just have to start typing and find the one that matches your treatment facility. Down under non-DOD organization, let's say the paperwork that I'm about to upload or scan in is coming from an off-site hospital such as Kaiser. I could type in Kaiser. I could put in the phone number. I can type in the addresses. So again, start from the top. 4 required fields when you upload into the HAIMS application. The first is the patient's name. When you're in AHLTA, it's already chosen for you. Number 2 is the author name, who authors the document. Number 3 is the date the document was created, the date of the visit. Very rarely is the visit today's date. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it might be an immunization form and the person just received a shot today and you're importing it in. Then, of course, today you would pick today's date. Under form numbers, again, Air Force forms are in here. AF. I could pick the 1480 summary of care, and it automatically chooses my document type for me. If I want to hand type something in specific, if someone was involved in a motor vehicle accident and they had a broken left index finger, I could literally type in broken left index finger, and it would be searchable by any of those 4 words. Just remember, 4 are required. The more metadata fields that you fill out, the easier it will be to find it. Down at the bottom, we have three choices. I can cancel this, meaning it will not get imported in. I could hit save and close, which will save and close this window and import that document into the HAIMS application. Or I could hit save and new, which also imports the document into the HAIMS application, but it will take me back to the browse screen where I can then import another document for the exact same patient. So if I have a standard form 558 and a standard form 508 for the same patient, that would require 2 separate imports. I would fill out the metadata for the first one and hit save and new, and then I would fill out the metadata information for the second one and then hit save and close. So before I move on, any questions on this screen? It's a very important screen because the more information you fill out, the easier it will be to search for it in the future. No questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cancel my import. I do not want to import this in. So now that we've imported documents into the HAIMS application, there's a really cool feature that allows the user to actually take that asset and associate it or paperclip it to an encounter. I could paperclip it to a current encounter, I could paperclip it to a previous encounter, or I could even paperclip it to a problem if I choose to. Remember in the beginning when I said there were 4 different methods for accessing the HAIMS application from within AHLTA. The most prevalent method is going to be by clicking on the HAIMS icon. The second method is in the current encounter. So if I click on current encounter, I have to choose my encounter. Now once my encounter loads, you'll notice at the bottom it says artifacts and images. If I click on artifacts and images, just click one time, it will open up another HAIMS tab. This is method number 2. You'll notice here in the middle, I'm looking at the asset screen, and it says no assets matching your search were found, which means nothing has been associated or paperclipped to this current encounter. But if I've already scanned in, for example, if I'm a cardiologist and I'm working with a patient and we ran an EKG, and I asked one of the techs to upload that EKG into HAIMS, that provider could go into this current encounter and click on the button that says Associate Existing. This will redirect you back to the main asset grid and allow you to choose one or more assets that you want to paperclip or associate with that encounter. So let's say it's the EKG. So I click the button right here that says EKG. I say OK, and I create the association. Now that asset is associated to this current encounter. What's nice about this is if the provider were to go into this current encounter, and let's say they had the nurse practitioner associate this for them, they would not have to search or filter through the HAIMS asset grid to find this one EKG. It would be right here. And if that provider wanted to see it, they would simply left click on the blue hyperlink and it would open up. What happens if, for example, as I'm checking boxes to associate, I accidentally grab the wrong one? It's not a big deal. I simply select the box, and you'll notice that the Delete Association Action button pops up, and I give it a reason. Maybe I just grabbed the wrong one. I could put other, and I just say, you know, I grabbed incorrect asset. And click OK, and now it will remove it. No harm, no foul. So that's how we can paper.
I have a question on deleting. Can only I, who created the association, delete this asset, or can any user delete the asset once it's associated?
That's another good question. Thank you. So the student asked if she were the one that created the association. Can someone else come in later and undo it or remove it or delete it? And the answer is yes. Anyone with the clinical role, the HAIMS clinical role, has the ability to paperclip an asset to an encounter. But it also means that anyone can undo the paperclip or delete it or remove it. Remember, nothing is ever deleted. It's just removed, unpaperclipped. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so if the user deletes it, is there a way to trace who deleted it?
There is. Another great question. So the student asked, if someone paperclips an asset, a user, we'll use user Joe. So if Joe paperclips an EKG to an encounter, and 2 days later, Sally goes in and unpaperclips it, there is an audit trail for everything you do inside of HAIMS. And the HIPAA auditor has the ability to run a report to see exactly what's been done by either the patient's name or by the user. So yes, if that did happen and you paper clipped it and I turned around and unpaper clipped it 2 days later, there is a report that can be ran that would say that you paper clipped it and I removed it. So yes, it can. You can find that information out. Another good question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So you'll notice I'm in the current encounter and there is nothing associated. Again, how do I associate? I simply click on Associate Existing. It redirects me to the asset grid. I choose one or more assets and I click OK. What happens to a current encounter once it becomes signed by the provider? It becomes a previous encounter. Well, in the example that we just talked about, the EKG being paper clipped, if that current encounter gets closed or signed and that asset was attached, when it becomes a previous encounter, that asset will also remain with the previous encounter, which is great. So if I go to the third method of opening up HAIMS from within AHLTA, I click on Previous Encounters. You will notice I have one previous encounter, and next to the encounter is a blue paperclip. That tells me, the user, that there are one or more assets that have been associated to that previous encounter. You'll notice up at the top of the bar here, it says Artifacts and Images and it's grayed out. There are two ways that I can view the assets that have been associated. I can either click right on the paperclip, which will launch the Artifacts and Images screen, or I could highlight the encounter and click on Artifacts and Images. You can even right-click and click Manage Artifacts and Images. So I'm going to open it by clicking on the previous encounter and click on Artifacts and Images. You'll see here in this previous encounter, we have 3 different assets that have been associated to that previous encounter. And I get this question all the time. Can I go into a previous encounter and add assets even after the fact? Yes, you can. Assets can be paperclipped to these previous encounters or problems list anytime you choose. So you'll notice we have 3. Again, the process is the same. I click on Associate. Now before I do this, we have 3 assets that are associated to this previous encounter. When I click on Associate to go and associate another one, do you recall how many assets I started with? I had 11. You'll notice down here on the right corner of the screen, it says 8. HAIMS is smart enough to know that it will not let you grab the same asset twice. So I could then choose a 4th, click OK, and click OK, and now there will be 4 assets associated to that previous encounter. And
Sir, I have a question.
yes.
Does this mean that now I don't have to amend my encounter and actually re-sign it to add a test result that came back late?
As far as your amending documents in AHLTA, when you're working inside the HAIMS application, they are completely separate applications. So when you're in HAIMS, you're in HAIMS. When you work within AHLTA, you're inside AHLTA. Obviously, you notice that there are tabs at the top. I can switch back and forth. I can go to previous encounters, I can go to my appointments, and I can come back over and click on Artifacts and Images, and I will be right back in the HAIMS application. So if you're going to append or amend, that process will be the same in AHLTA.
Yeah, but it looks like I can actually add my document to HAIMS instead of putting in the Add Notes section, so that means I don't have to amend.
Right, right. Okay. There is a way for you to take the information. Now remember, if it's just a note that you're going to hand type, if it's a hand typed note, you're still going to need to use AHLTA. But if it's an actual document,
Okay.
if it's a document that you are editing on your computer, that's different. If it's, like I said, if you're hand typing
Yeah, I'm
it,
gonna.
go ahead. Right, if you hand type the note, you would still type your note in AHLTA. If, however, you're making an edit or a change to a document, that's different. You would save it to your computer, make your amends or your appends, save that document, and then, yes, you can bring it right into the encounter by simply clicking on this import button right here where it says import asset. You simply choose import, and you'll notice it says associate with selected encounter. If you had a scanner,
Right. Okay.
it's a great question. If you had a scanner, of course, and it was a loose piece of paper, you could scan it. But if it's something that you are amending in electronic format, you're going to have the file itself saved to your computer. So you would browse and upload, click browse, go find the file, click open, click upload, and of course it's going to prompt you to fill out the metadata information. Once you fill out,
Very good.
right, once you fill out the 4 required fields, and then again, the more you fill out, the easier it will be to find it. You fill out the fields, you hit save and close, and now that document that you just amended or appended could be imported right into the actual encounter itself. Does that make sense? Sounds like it was
Wonderful. Thank you.
good question. So we've looked at the current encounter. We've looked at the previous encounter. The last method for opening up the HAIMS application is under the problems list. If I click on problems and I were to drill down, for example, on the problem list here, we have the neurologic disorder, and you'll see that there's a blue paperclip. That tells me that one or more assets has been associated. So I click on the blue paperclip, which will open up the Artifacts and Images tab, and now I can see that someone associated an EKG to that problem. And if I choose to import more, I could simply click on the import icon. If it's already been imported into HAIMS, I would click on associate if I wanted to associate more assets to the same problem. So that covers the HAIMS application from within AHLTA. Do I have any other questions on that? So what happens if AHLTA happens to go into local mode or failover mode? Well, of course, you would not be able to utilize HAIMS, because if AHLTA is not functioning, you would not be able to access the HAIMS tabs either. So I'm going to log out of AHLTA and log into our standalone mode. I do that by clicking on the HAIMS icon, and I accept the DoD banner. For those of you, when you get your account created, you will simply log in using your CAC card right here. You just click this button right here. You then enter in your email certificate, or choose your email certificate. It may prompt you to put in your CAC pin, and it'll automatically load the standalone screen. For myself, I have to use a username and password, so I'm going to log in.
Sir, I got a question. When I change my ALTA password, is that also then going to allow me to access the HAIMS standalone again, or do I have to change a password? Because I saw it said change password. Do I have to do anything different here when I log into that URL?
Another good question. So the student wanted to know, before I logged in here, there was a change password action button right here on the right. No, you do not. She wanted to know, if I change my AHLTA password, do I have to come to this screen and also change it here? The nice thing about AHLTA talking with HAIMS is that anytime you change your AHLTA password, it automatically changes your HAIMS password. So they sync up together.
Great, thank you.
So I have logged into the HAIMS Standalone. Again, AHLTA goes into local mode or failover mode, but you still have internet access at your facility. As long as your internet is still working, you can log into the Standalone. From here, we see what we call the HAIMS dashboard. My role is a HAIMS Clinical user. I am connected to the central pair, the HAIMS Artifact and Image Repository. Over here on the left, it says most recently viewed patients. Similar to AHLTA, HAIMS will store the last most frequent 20 patients that you have accessed. So if you get that frequent flyer that comes in all the time to say hi, they probably will never leave this list. In my example, I only have 2. Up at the top, what I will see is my dashboard tab, my patient search tab, my logout tab, and over on the right, I see help, my settings, and quick search. Again, very similar to AHLTA, first initial, last name, last 4, sponsors FMP, very similar to AHLTA. So if I click on help, from here, you'll see that there are frequently asked questions that I can click on. There is a HAIMS tutorial. The computer-based training courses, there are some that are loaded here, as well as on MHS Learn. About HAIMS, if I click on About HAIMS, this will tell me the version that I'm working with, as well as where you see the release notes. If there is an upgrade to the HAIMS system, I could click on Release Notes, which would then launch a PDF, and that will tell me what new changes have been made. The My Settings tab. When we were in AHLTA and we talked about saving our search queries, this is where I can go in and delete them if I no longer use them. Or my grid configurations. I can come in here and delete them if I no longer use them. Under here where it says Search Preferences, search by last number of. I mentioned that HAIMS will automatically display the most recent 100 assets. Now you can tell the system in standalone mode that you only want to see the last 25. You don't need to see all 100, you just need to see the most recent 25, and you can do that by simply clicking on this button right here and choosing 25. Above, address information and contact information. You can put in your information if you choose. You even have the ability to put in your own photograph over here on the left. This silhouette would change to the picture that you upload. The picture can only be a 200 by 200 megapixel, very small. So very, very small, but you do have the ability to upload your own photo. If I go back to the Patient Search tab, this allows me to do a search. So for example, if I want to search for HAIMS, MMM, and I'll type in, I'll leave it blank, and hit search. This loaded for me 50 different last names of HAIMS, MMM, and there are 4 pages. When you're doing a search in standalone HAIMS, it's important to realize you do not have that little function that AHLTA provides that allows you to search your local area. When you search in standalone HAIMS, it will search the entire world, all of the assets, all of the records. So if you have a generic name such as Smith, first name John, you are definitely going to want to fill in more identifying information to help narrow your search. If I hit search right here, the system will time out on me and it will tell me that there are more than 499 results. Refine your search. So again, if the name is a generic name, you're definitely going to want to put in possibly maybe the date of birth or their social security number or the sponsor's social. Down below, I searched by HAIMS MMM. You'll notice I have some more icons very similar to what we saw in AHLTA. The first one is my configure columns. Again, those columns in gray, I cannot move them around, I cannot delete them. But the columns in the white, I can add or remove. If I want to save my grid configuration, I save it here with the next icon. You'll notice that in my example, we have no saved grid configurations. I also have these four icons. The first one says View All Assets. If I want to see all of the assets for HAIMS 8, I would click here. The N will give me only the last 25 because I set 25 as my preference in the My Settings tab. The W, of course, is only going to show me the last week's worth, and the M shows me the last month's worth of assets that have been loaded. And the little spyglass lets me search specifically for assets. So any questions on the search screen? I'm going to utilize my filter, and I'm going to type in 50, F-I-F-T-Y, and you'll notice HAIMS automatically filters for me, just like it did in AHLTA. Very quick, very simple. I'm going to click on HAIMS 50. Once I load this patient, this screen should look very, very familiar. It is the exact same screen, exact same functionality that you have when you are in AHLTA. The only difference is that you cannot paperclip or associate an asset. Obviously because you are not in AHLTA, you are in the HAIMS Standalone. I still have my advanced search tab up here for VA. I also have, you'll notice up here where it has the patient's name, I do have the ability, if I click it, I could upload the patient's photo. Again, over on the right, I've got my quick search. I've got my saved search queries. I've got my grid configurations. Everything looks the same. So let's take the time now, and we're going to go ahead and open up a DICOM image or an X-ray. So I will click once. I will open the file. Again, as I mentioned in the slide presentation, the more assets I try to load, the longer this may take. In my example, I only have 2 images. I'm going to make this full screen. We'll talk a little bit about what we see. This is what we call the HAIMS Medical Image Viewer, the HMIV. It's a standard viewer. A lot of civilian facilities have one that looks just like it. Up here on the left, I've got a Rubik's Cube. This will allow me to open a new series or a new study, and it allows me to also exit out of the program. I've got 4 tabs: Home, Annotate, Cine, and View. Down here in the middle, I've got the study list. I can only view 1 study at a time in HAIMS. And then down at the bottom, I have my series. In my example, we only have 1 series with 2 images. I'm going to grab this line in the middle of the screen and drag it up. There we go. Up here under the Home tab, I've got Study List. I've got the report. If there was a report for these images, it would be here. I've got my Reload series. You notice as I'm hovering over these icons, it's telling me how to perform the function. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. If you had more than 1 series down here, you could click once on the first one, click on the second one, and maybe click on the 4th one. And then you could right-click and hit View All. It will open up to 4 series at a time. So I could put 4 series up on my screen at one time. Since I only have 1, I'm going to view this series because this is the only one I have. If, however, I had more than 1, I could have loaded the series and there would be 1 on the left side of the screen and 1 on the right side of the screen. For example, if I had 2. And then the views. If I had more than one, I could click on double view, triple view, or quad view. You'll notice that there are patient demographics on this slide. If I wanted to use this radiograph to show another patient, or maybe I wanted to use it as a teaching moment, I could hide the patient's demographics by simply clicking on the Show Hide, and it disappears. I also have the ability to change the color. Maybe yellow gives you a headache. If you're a person that has migraine headache, sometimes yellow is not a very easy color to look at. You could change it to red, for example. There we go. On my Cine tab, if I go to my Select a Slice, you'll notice that I only have 2 slices. If I had a series that was pulled up in the HMIV and it had 80 slices, and in the radiologist report it said slide or slice 67 has a fracture, I could literally click the Select a Slice, scroll down to number 67, and just click it and go right to it. This is like a DVD. This is like a DVD player. I could hit play, and it will play all of the slices. I think I may have somebody who's not on mute. Could you possibly check your phone? Just make sure you're on mute for me. So from the Cine tab, I can play by clicking on play, and it plays the slices. I can speed it up or slow it down. If I want it to go a little slower, I just slow it down. I can even loop it. Hit loop and hit play, and it will just loop it and keep going until I pause it. I could go from one slice to the next by just clicking next slice. Or I could go right to the slice by just choosing it. Under the Home tab, again, if I click on Study List, it'll take me back to the main screen where I can choose a different study. Reload just reloads the series. This will reload the slice. Under Slices, left mouse button. If you want to move between slices, you click your left mouse button, and while holding it down, you move the mouse on the screen and it will go to the next slice. Panning. If I hover over panning, it will tell me that I click my left mouse button on the slice in the area that I want to drag it to. Magnify. If I left click on the magnifier, I can then hold down my left mouse button and magnify over something specific. Of course, wind level is going to change my contrast. Zoom will zoom in and out. Invert. Invert will allow me to make it look more like an MRI. Again, I can rotate and flip. And I've got my header log and the log. Under my Annotate tab, from here, I have the ability to draw and make measurements. So maybe I want to make a measurement on this lung. I can right click, go down to my ruler properties. I'm going to make it a little bit larger and change it to Smart Metric. It does default in English, so you would want to right click and change it. And I'm going to change the font a little larger so that you can see it better. So you notice I now have 14.16 centimeters on the rib or the lung, and I can drag it, move it around, make it larger, smaller. I even have the ability to do rectangles, boxes, ellipse. I can even freeform if I choose to. Make all kinds of different annotations. I even have my text box where I can type something in. From here, you have the ability to save this image to your local drive. I could simply click on Save to Local, and it would save what I'm looking at with all of my annotations on it. I could simply click New to HAIMS. That would import this picture with all of my annotations on it into the HAIMS application as a brand new JPEG picture. Or I could amend it or derive to HAIMS, whereas I just click on the action button. It's going to show me the radiograph on the left, Of course, I will need to fill in my metadata. You'll notice the date is automatically in here. The document type loaded for me, and someone has already loaded chest CT scan. At the bottom, I would hit save and close, and it would import it into the HAIMS system as an amended picture or JPEG. When I'm finished, I can clear my slice or clear my series simply by clicking here, and I can start over. So that is the HAIMS Medical Image Viewer. If I'm going to exit out, I simply click on the Rubik's Cube and hit exit. And that brings me back to my standalone asset grid. So that will conclude the HAIMS clinical training for Standalone and AHLTA. Do we have any further questions? Is there anything that anyone wants to see again before we log off?
Yes, I do have a question on those DICOM images. Since this is a tri-service-wide application, so I'm going to be able to see Army, Air Force, and Navy images via HAIMS right now?
Good question. So the question was asked, because it's a tri-service application for the radiographs, do you have the ability to see all of them, no matter which service generated the DICOM image? And the answer is yes, you do. You will have access to all of the x-rays once the radiologist reads the report. So yes, through HAIMS you will be able to see x-rays that were taken at another service. Good question.
Thank you.
Good question. Well, if there are no other questions, we're going to show you how to...
Sir, I have another question for you.
Okay.
How far back are they importing these x-rays? Like, could I look at an x-ray that was taken in 2000?
Good question. Student wants to know how far back can we access these x-rays or these radiographs in the HAIMS application. They do not go back beyond March of 2012. If you want to see an x-ray from previous to March 2012, you would need to go to the PACS system in order to see it. Did that answer that question?
Yes, sir, it did.
Great. Very good questions. Thank you all. So how do we log out of the standalone? You want to get into the habit of clicking on the log out button, the tab. It says, are you sure you want to log out? And you say, okay. And then you want to close the window because you have an open browser. Again, use the log out tab to log out. And that concludes our HAIMS clinical video tutorial.